Percy puffed grumpily into the yards. He was feeling put upon and said so. "I feel put upon," he complained to Thomas. Thomas was confused. "Put upon what? The rails?" "No, put upon with work. Driver says he is too." "Put upon? What a silly saying," replied Thomas. But Annie and Clarabelle liked it, and they sang about it too. "Percy's been put upon, put upon, put upon. Percy's been put upon, poor old Percy." Percy is being put upon. I am. He collected metal from the foundry, coal from the yards, flour from the mills, rock from the quarries, and fuel from the depot. Then he delivered it all to the docks. Next, he collected some empty freight cars. "Who's this dirty little engine?" cried the freight cars. "We want Thomas or Duck." Percy ignored them. Put upon, that's what I am. That night, all the engines laughed at him. "We can see what's been put upon you," said Thomas. "Silence," said Sir Topham Hatt. "Percy, you've done a good day's work. Now get a good night's rest." "Yes, sir. Thank you, sir." Next morning, he took some freight cars to the coal yards. Then he had to push empty freight cars to the mine shaft. When he arrived, there was trouble. The foreman spoke to his driver. "The freight cars are stuck on the mechanism. All they need is a good push. We'll do it right away." Percy shunted back to where a large canvas barrier was used to protect his line from loose rocks. Percy charged at the line of freight cars too fast and too hard. "Oh no!" gasped Percy. The freight cars broke free, but ran out of control to the mines below. On! Faster, faster!" the silly freight cars yelled. Then there was trouble again. "Get out of here fast! The mine's collapsing!" "We'll just have to make a run for it, Percy," called his driver. "There's going to be an avalanche," wailed Percy. And he was right. Worse still, the track he was on began to crumble. "Oh, help!" wailed Percy. Then he remembered something he had seen earlier. "There's a canvas barrier by the track. That might save us." They were just in time. Percy was right. The canvas did indeed save them, but the miners didn't know that. "The avalanche has buried an engine and its crew," shouted the foreman. "We must help them." When Percy had been rescued, Sir Topham Hatt spoke to his driver and fireman, then to Percy. "Driver told me how brave you were, Percy. As a reward, you will be repainted at the works." "Oh, thank you, sir." When he returned, Percy's coat glistened in the sun. "I'm sorry we teased you, Percy," said Thomas. "You were certainly put upon by that avalanche." "Yes, indeed. But just look at my new coat of paint. Now, I don't mind that being put upon me." Sir Topham Hatt's engines love being shiny and clean. It makes them feel cheerful as they puff across the island of Sodor. Percy often has the dirtiest work to do, but he likes to be clean as well as any other engine. Washdowns are important to Percy. But Sir Topham Hatt had bad news. "Due to a water shortage," he said, "no engine shall have more than one washdown a day. Usefulness before cleanliness," he added, and left. Percy was upset. "I get dirty," he complained. "I need washdowns. Gordon only does it to feel important." "I am important," Gordon sniffed. "I'm an express engine." "You're a pouty puffer, Percy," teased James. "No, I'm not," wheezed Percy, and he chuffed away. Percy was loading freight cars at the docks. He was trying extra hard to stay clean, but the troublesome trucks were being naughty. As Percy pushed them under the coal chute, they sang out. On, they cried. Percy found himself under the chute, and coal dust flew everywhere. "Oh, no," coughed Percy. "I'm filthy." Percy felt awful, but he knew he had to carry on. On the way to Callan Station, the troublesome trucks teased Percy even more. "Clickety-clack, don't look back, dirty Percy's on our track." "Be quiet," Percy snapped. When Percy arrived at Callan Station, he was very upset. "From now on, I am only doing work where I won't get dirty." Harold the helicopter was at Callan Station picking up medical supplies. "Hello, Percy," he called. And he took off blowing cinders and ashes everywhere. "Not again," cried Percy. "I want a washdown." "Usefulness before cleanliness," reminded his driver. "I want to be useful where I can't get dirty," Percy huffed. "There's a load of sugar going to the chocolate factory," his driver said. "We could take the sugar cars." "Sugar," said Percy. "That's nice and clean." Percy was pleased. Percy didn't know that earlier a leaky freight car had spilled oil on the track. When he approached the chocolate factory, his driver applied the brakes. But Percy's wheels just skidded on the oily rails. "Oh, no," hooted Percy. "Yuck," he groaned. "I've never been this dirty." He was covered from funnel to firebox in sticky, gooey chocolate. Back at the sheds, everyone thought it was very funny. "You look good enough to eat," Thomas hooted. "Bonbon Percy," teased James. "Chalk ice on wheels," chipped in Henry. "Disgraceful," said Gordon pompously. "Ahem," said a stern-sounding voice. It was Sir Topham Hatt. "You have had a trying day, Percy," he said. "Yes, sir," replied Percy from beneath the chocolate. "But you've showed us all that usefulness does come before cleanliness. So," he added, "you shall have your washdown." "Oh, sir." "And a new coat of paint." Percy just beamed.
Every summer, the island of Sodor is very busy. Holidaymakers love to sightsee, and when the weather is fine, there is no better place to visit. Some people like to go to the mountains. Others like the valleys. Children love the seaside. One morning, Thomas was puffing along the line that runs by the coast. His two coaches, Annie and Clarabelle, were packed with children going to the beach. Everyone was happy. Percy was taking some freight cars to the harbor. "Hello, Thomas. You look cheerful. I wish I could take children today instead of freight cars." "They're the Vickers Sunday School," explained Thomas. "I'm busy this evening, but the station master says I can ask you to take the children home." "Of course I will," promised Percy. Later, Percy saw Harold. Sorry, Percy. Can't talk. I'm on high alert. Why? Bad weather's due. My help's always needed. Mind how you go, Percy. Ha! Huffed Percy. As long as I've got rails to run on, I can go anywhere, in any weather, anyhow. Goodbye. Be careful, warned Edward. There's a storm coming. A promise is a promise, thought Percy, no matter what the weather. The children had a lovely day, but by tea time, dark clouds loomed ahead. Andy and Clarabelle were glad when Percy arrived. He was just in time. The rain streamed down Percy's boiler. Ugh, he shivered and thought of his nice dry shed. Percy struggled on past coastal villages and into the countryside. The river was rising fast. I wish I could see, complained Percy as he battled against the rain. More trouble lay ahead. Oh, hissed Percy, the water is sloshing my fire. Percy's driver and fireman had to find some more firewood. I'll have some of your floorboards, please, said the fireman to the conductor. I only swept the floor this morning, grumbled the conductor, but he still helped. Soon Percy's fire was burning well. He felt warm and comfortable again. Then he saw Harold. Oh dear, thought Percy. Harold's come to laugh at me. Something thudded onto Percy's boiler. Ow! Exclaimed Percy. He needn't throw things. It's a parachute, laughed his driver. Harold's dropping hot drinks for us. Thank you, Harold, whistled Percy. Good to be of service, replied Harold and buzzed away. The water lapped Percy's wheels. Percy was losing steam again, but he plunged bravely on. I promised, he panted. I promised. He made one more big effort, and at last, exhausted but triumphant, he brought the train home. Well done, Percy, cheered Thomas. You kept your promise, despite everything. Sir Topham had arrived in Harold. First he thanked the men, then Percy. Harold told me you were a wizard. He said he can beat you at some things, but not at being a submarine. I don't know what you two get up to sometimes, but I do know that you're a really useful engine. Oh, sir, whispered Percy happily. Accident, it runs again as a warning to others, plunging into the gap, shrieking like a lost soul. Percy, what are you talking about? The ghost train. Driver saw it last night. Where? Asked Thomas and Toby. He didn't say. Oh, it makes my wheels wobble to think of it. Puh, said Thomas. You're just a silly little engine. I'm not scared. Thomas didn't believe in your ghost, said Percy next morning. His driver laughed. Neither do I. It was only a pretend ghost story. Percy was disappointed. That evening he came back from the harbor. Percy knew where he was, even in the dark. Crow's Farm Crossing. We shan't be long now. He liked running at night. The rails hummed and the signal light shone green. But a broken cartload of lime lay ahead. Sam the farmer had just gone for help. Percy broke the cart to smithereens. Lime flew everywhere. He puffed quickly to the nearest signal box. Percy's driver explained what had happened. "I'll see to it," said the signalman. "But you'd better clean Percy, or people will think he's a ghost." Percy chuckled. "Do let's pretend I'm a ghost and scare Thomas. That'll teach him to say I'm a silly little engine." Toby promised to help. Thomas was being oiled up for his evening train. "Percy's had an accident," cried Toby. "Poor engine," said Thomas. "Botheration! That means I'll be late. They've cleared the line for you, but there's something worse." "Out with it, Toby. I can't wait all evening." "I just seen something," said Toby. It looked like Percy's ghost. It said it was coming here to warn us." "Puh, who cares? Don't be frightened, Toby. I'll take care of you." Let me in, wailed Percy. No, not by the smoke on my chimney, chim. I'll chuff and I'll puff and I'll break your door in. "Oh, dear," exclaimed Thomas. "It's getting late. Oh, I'd no idea. Oh, I must find Annie and Clarabelle." It was morning when Thomas returned. "Where have you been?" asked Toby. Well," said Thomas, "I knew you'd be sad about Percy, and I didn't like to intrude. I slept in the freight shed and..." "Oh, sorry, can't stop. Gotta see a coach about a train." Percy was none the worse for his adventure and was still enjoying himself enormously. He had heard everything. Well, what do you know about that?" "Anyone would think," chuckled Toby, "that our Thomas had just seen a ghost." One day Henry wanted to rest, but Percy was talking to some engines. He was telling them about the time he had braved bad weather to help Thomas. "It was raining hard. Water swirled under my boiler. I couldn't see where I was going, but I struggled on." "Oh, Percy, you are brave." "Well, it wasn't anything really. Water's nothing to an engine with determination." "Tell us more, Percy." "What are you engines doing here?" hissed Henry. "This shed is for Sir Topham Hatt's engines. Go away." "Silly things," Henry snorted. "They're not silly." Percy had been enjoying himself. "They are silly, and so are you. Water's nothing to an engine with determination." "Huh." "Anyway," said cheeky Percy, "I'm not afraid of water. I like it." He ran off to the harbor singing. "Once an engine attached to a train was afraid of a few drops of rain. No one ever lets me forget the time I wouldn't come out of the tunnel in case the rain spoiled my paint," huffed Henry. Thomas was looking at the board on the key. "Danger." "We mustn't go past it," he said. "That's orders." "Why?" "Danger means falling down something," said Thomas. "I went past danger once and fell down a mine." I can't see a mine, said Percy. He didn't know that the foundations of the quay had sunk. The rails now sloped downward to the sea. Stupid board, said Percy. He made a plan. One day, he whispered to the cars, will you give me a bump when we get to the quay? The cars had never been asked to bump an engine before. They giggled and chattered about it. Driver doesn't know my plan, chuckled Percy. On, laughed the cars. Percy thought they were helping. I'll pretend to stop at the station, but the cars will push me past the board. Then I'll make them stop. I can do that whenever I like. Every wise engine knows you cannot trust freight cars. Go on, they yelled and bumped Percy's driver and fireman off the footplate. Ow, said Percy, sliding past the board. Percy was frantic. That's enough! Percy was sunk. You are a very disobedient engine. Percy knew that voice. Please, sir, get me out, sir. I'm truly sorry, sir. No, Percy, we cannot do that till high tide. I hope it will teach you to take care of yourself. Yes, sir. It was dark when they brought floating cranes to rescue Percy. He was too cold and stiff to move by himself. Next day, he was sent to the works on Henry's freight train. Well, chuckled Henry. Did you like the water? No. I am surprised. You need more determination, Percy. Water's nothing to an engine with determination, you know. Perhaps you will like it better next time. Percy is quite determined that there won't be a next time. Percy works in the yard at the big station. He loves playing jokes, but they can get him into trouble. One morning, he was very cheeky indeed. Beep, beep. Hurry up, Gordon. The train's ready. Gordon thought he was late. Ha, 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 laughed Percy and showed him a train of dirty coal cars. Gordon thought how to get back at Percy for teasing him. Next, it was James's turn. Stay in the shed today, James. Sir Topham Hatt will come and see you. Ah, thought James, Sir Topham Hatt knows I'm a fine engine. He wants me to pull a special train. James's driver and fireman could not make him move. The other engines grumbled dreadfully. They had to do James's work as well as their own. At last, the inspector arrived. Show a wheel, James. You can't stay here all day. Sir Topham Hatt told me to stay here. He sent a message this morning. He did not. How could he? He's away for a week. Oh, said James. Oh, where's Percy? Percy had wisely disappeared. When Sir Topham Hatt came back, he was cross with James and Percy for causing so much trouble. But the very next day, Percy was still being cheeky. I say, you engines, I'm to take some freight cars to Thomas's Junction. Sir Topham Hatt chose me especially. He must know I'm a really useful engine. More likely he wants you out of the way, grunted James. Gordon looked across to James. They were going to play a trick on Percy.
James and I were just speaking about signals at the junction. We can't be too careful about signals, but then I needn't say that to a really useful engine like you, Percy.
Percy felt flattered.
We had spoken of backing signals, put in James. They need extra special care, you know. Would you like me to explain?
No, thank you, James, said Percy. I know all about signals. Percy was a little worried. I wonder what backing signals are, he thought. Never mind, I'll manage. He puffed crossly to his freight cars and felt better. He came to a signal. Bother! It's a danger. The signal moved to show line clear. Its arm moved up instead of down. Percy had never seen that sort of signal before. Down means go, and up means stop. So upper still must mean go back. I know, it's one of those backing signals.
Come on, Percy, said his driver. Off we go. Stop! You're going the wrong way.
But it's a backing signal, Percy protested and told him about Gordon and James. The driver laughed and explained. Oh, dear, said Percy. Let's start quickly before they see us. He was too late. Gordon saw everything. That night, the big engines talked about signals. They thought the subject was funny. Percy thought they were being very silly. It was a beautiful morning on the island of Sodor. Thomas the Tank Engine's blue paint sparkled in the sunshine as he puffed happily along his branch line with Annie and Clarabelle. He was feeling very pleased with himself. Hello, Thomas, whistled Percy. You look splendid. Yes, indeed, boasted Thomas. Blue is the only proper color for an engine. Oh, I don't know. I like my brown paint, said Toby. I've always been green. I wouldn't want to be any other color either, added Percy. Well, anyway, huffed Thomas, blue is the only color for a really useful engine. Everyone knows that. Percy said no more. He just grinned at Toby. Later, Thomas was resting when Percy arrived. A large hopper was loading his freight cars full of coal. Thomas was still being cheeky. Careful, he warned. Watch out with those silly cars. Go on, muttered the cars. And by the way, went on Thomas, those buffers don't look very safe to me. The last load poured down. Help, help, cried Thomas. Get me out. Percy was worried, but he couldn't help laughing. Thomas's smart blue paint was covered in coal dust from smokebox to bunker. Ha-ha, chuckled Percy. You don't look really useful now, Thomas. You look really disgraceful. I'm not disgraceful, choked Thomas. You did that on purpose. Get me out. It took so long to clean Thomas that he wasn't in time for his next train. Toby had to take Annie and Clarabelle. Poor Thomas, whispered Annie to Clarabelle. They were most upset. Thomas was grumpy in the shed that night. Toby thought it a great joke,
But Percy was cross with Thomas for thinking he had made his paint dirty on purpose. Fancy a really useful blue engine like Thomas becoming a disgrace to Sir Topham Hatt's railway. Next day, Thomas was feeling more cheerful as he watched Percy bring his cars from the junction. The cars were heavy and Percy was tired. "Have a drink," said his driver. "Then you'll feel better." The water column stood at the end of the siding with the unsafe buffers. Suddenly, Percy found that he couldn't stop. The buffers didn't stop him either. "Oh!" wailed Percy. "Help!" The buffers were broken, and Percy was wheel-deep in coal. It was time for Thomas to leave. He had seen everything. "Now Percy has learned his lesson, too," he chuckled to himself. That night, the two engines made up their quarrel. "I didn't cause your accident on purpose, Thomas," whispered Percy. "You do know that, don't you?" "Of course," replied Thomas, "and I'm sorry I teased you. Your green paint looks splendid again, too. In future, we'll both be more careful of coal."